Okay, so here we are for part 2 of my vintage memory keeper. And sorry that took so long, but I'm going to dive in now to the inside of our album and just show you some of the things that I have done. I'm going to show you how I made my signatures. These can be made in many different ways, and you can use a lot of different types of paper. For mine, I chose to use some paper I picked up from the store that's actually drawing pad for kids, and I just took the paper out of it. These are available. I think I got mine at Buy Mart, but you can get them at any store that sells art supplies as well. And there's different ones. There's Scribble Pad, just different. These ones are a little bit darker, but it's just kind of a more vintage looking paper than if I was to just use regular cardstock. So I like that. And then I'm also going to put some envelopes that I have cut down and put those in both sides of the album, just to stuff stuff in. Again, this is a junk journal styled album with a little bit more structure than your typical junk journal. So for the place to put the, let me just show you here. I'm going to pull my signature out. I am going to show you here on camera a little closer. So I've used a hole punch crocodile 2 by We Are Memory Keepers. It's the large, this one here. So if you have this, these are amazing because you can both do your hole punching and placing your grommets at the same with the same tool, and I like that about that. If you don't, you can use a regular hole punch as well, and you just want to make some lines on your spine and find the center of your spine, and then mark your holes at every 1/4 of an inch. So I have 3 and 3, and if you wanted, you could probably fit 4 here if you wanted to put 4 signatures in. I'm just going to do 3. And then I just put these white grommets and then strung it with a stretchy gold cord to kind of coordinate with my gold washi tape that I used in here as well. And I'm using it as well on the signatures. So first I'm going to show you how I altered some craft plain envelopes that were just laying around in my stash. Obviously, as you can see, this one is too big. So what we're going to do is we're going to change it to this size so it fits. And by doing that, or excuse me, to do that, we just want to kind of measure out what we have as a space extra. I'm going to grab my scoreboard. So what we want to do is we want to take our envelope, and we know that, excuse me, mine that I've already done comes out to be 4 7/8. And we have a 1/2 inch flap already there in this one, but we're going to need to create that 1/2 inch flap on the other side. So we want to do a 4 7/8 plus a 1/2. So I'm just going to unfold this. We're going to take this to 5 3/8. So at 5 3/8 on here, I'm going to score this envelope. And then I'm going to go back at 4 7/8 and make that 1/2 inch mark. Okay? So then we're just going to pull in a cutter. I'm just going to grab my guillotine cutter over here, and I'm going to cut off that excess space. And this is just altering what you have in your stash. You may even have some little square envelopes that you don't have to do this with that will fit. And save that cut off because, again, this is a junk journal. And this is another thing I will show you in just a moment that you can do with what we just cut off if you're doing it this way. So now what we have is this. We have our flap here. And we will probably want to flatten out that line a little bit there. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to pull it apart. So we will try carefully to pull this apart. So I'm just going to pull this envelope open here, as you can see. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to cut on that score line at an angle as if I was mitering on both sides. And I'm going to do the same on that top score line as well. So then you see you get this nice little mitered corners, just like the envelope when it was originally created. Then we're just going to pull that down, that score line. We're going to cut this one off. So we do not need that. And now, as you can see, we have created a smaller envelope. We're going to cut that up here off. And then the other side is a little rounded, so I'm just going to take it around the corner there. And now you see we have this. Now, if you wanted to leave the flap, you could. I am going to cut mine off, as I did the others. And there you have it. Now, again, this being a junk journal styled album, this does not need to be perfectly straight or anything of that nature. And that works out really well. So then I'm just going to add some glue and put my envelope back together. Like I said, you may have smaller envelopes in your stash that fit really well with your size of junk journal. So feel free to use those. This is just a quick tip on how I altered some that I had in my stash for a really long time that I was not using. And as you can see, I put glue up there where I didn't need it. And you can also cut those pieces out, these little side pieces, if you don't want them. I'm just leaving them. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to glue this one down that wasn't glued yet. And there, now I have 2, 3, and I'm going to actually want another. There it is. This one I need to also glue. And this will be my last one. I don't need that little flap there. And like I said, you can cut them out if you like. You don't have to. And there's my 4th. So now I have 4 envelopes that I have cut down. Now, as far as the piece that we cut off, if you save this piece, most likely it will have the glue from the original envelope. But if you don't want to wet it, you can just add a little glue along the edge here. And we're just going to close that up. And this is going to create a fun little pocket that you can put somewhere in your junk journal. I love that. So those are some tips for that. Now, as far as where these are going to go, I am going to adhere these in my junk journal. I'm just going to add some glue, and we will decorate these a little. Keep in mind, I'm not going to over embellish this album. It is meant to be fairly simple. So we're going to start with 1 and put it right under that line of text. Burnish that down. And then I'm going to just do the other one. And my glue. And we're just going to overlap those a little. This one is a bit smaller, and that is okay. Again, junk journal style does not need to be perfect. So now we have these wonderful pockets that we can stick stuff in. So also, I will say that if you did not want these like this, there are other ways that you can adhere these into your journal. You could put these down as flaps by adding a 1/2 inch space paper to the top, or when you cut that top piece of the envelope off, leave a 1/2 inch, and then these would fold over and flip up. And I might just do that on this one just so that you can see what I mean. So I'm going to take that piece of flap that I cut off, and I am going to cut it down to 1 inch because that is all I need. You can leave it this size if you like. I'm going to take mine down to 1 inch, and I am going to score that 1 inch piece that I just cut at 1/2 inch. Just going to make a little hinge system here. And I'm going to adhere that. I'm going to use score tape for this just so that it sticks really well. You can use glue. I'm just going to run that along that side of the little flap after I have folded it in half. Burnish that tape down nicely. And then I'm just going to set that, line this up on the back side of this. And I'm using my scoreboard because it helps me line things up. It's a wonderful tool for this. You've probably heard me say that in other videos if you've watched some of my others. Now that just gives us this wonderful little flap. So when we pull in our album, we can place this one down and have this one lift up, and then you can put stuff underneath. So I am actually going to make it a 2 system. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to adhere the second envelope for this side just across the top here so that I can put it on top of that other envelope that has the flap. So I'm going to put it on my book. Where this is going to be. And then I'm going to take this one with the glue on it, and I am going to line it up like so onto the other envelope, making sure it's straight. And this will help me know right where I need to adhere that. So now we have 2 envelopes with a flap. So burnish that glue down a little bit. And then again, I'm going to use score tape. You can use glue, but I'm going to use score tape just for a little bit better adherence to the album. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put that where it needs to go. Oops. And now I can lift this up, which is also fun. So we have these 2 pockets here with a lift up, and we could put something else underneath here, such as this fun little envelope. Another little thing, what did I do with that little envelope we made? Well, it's here somewhere. Oh, that is it. Okay. So you could take this one and add it to the bottom of this one. It is a little wider, But you could add it and then you have another little tuck spot here for tags or anything that you want to stick in your junk journal, or you can add it back here as well. So you have this nice little, in fact, I think I'm going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to add this little pocket to the back underneath those two envelopes. I just put glue on the back there. And we're just going to line that up. It's the same width as our paper, which is wonderful, the one I am working with. So that worked out well. And now I have another little pocket to put stuff in. Gotta love pockets in a junk journal. Okay, so now I'm going to set the book aside really quick, and I am going to show you how I made these signatures. Now, if you want lined paper, I will tell you I also did one using a composition notebook, and I just took the cover off of it, which I can use for something else later. And that gives you all of this paper. And it's already got holes in it if you wanted to sew it. You just need to cut it down to fit. So how I made the signatures, as you can see, I used the beautiful papers from Love Letters as my cover. And then I took approximately 10 sheets of the paper, maybe 12, and folded those over, figured out the size. And for this book, the covers are 9 inches long, 5 inches wide. So a 10 by 9 piece of paper folded in half. And then I put it on my sewing machine, and I did run a stitch on my We Are Memory Keeper sewing machine in pink all the way down to sew this together. Now, when I sewed it a little tightly, which ripped the gorgeous Love Letters paper. But quick tip on that, if you sew paper and you rip it, washi tape, amazing. So I just took 2 pieces of washi tape and I added them to the spine to make up for that rip. You may like the ripped look. This paper inside will still stay just fine. And then I just mitered the corners so that this, when you open this, as you can tell, you have these V's here. And that makes it so that you can slip it easily into the book. Like so. And you could make these a little smaller. I did discover after making these that they were a little long. So you kind of have to, for mine, I kind of have to bend them to get them in here. But as you can see, this whole thing together is just beautiful. And then you just start adding some things to your pages as you go and decorate it as you like. And you'll have a wonderful structured junk journal. And like I said, I'm going to have a total of 3 of these signatures. And once this is all complete, I will throw up a walkthrough. You can, like I said, you can decorate your envelopes. You can add your own. You can make your own pockets to put on the side. You can do something completely different than I did. You could put a waterfall here. There's just many things you can do with a junk journal. And then I'm also going to show you the closure, how I'm going to do that as well. Okay, so now for the closure, I have added a piece of that. So I punched a hole in my flap in the middle, and I have added a little white grommet there and taken some of that same gold stretchy that's here and tied it in a knot and pulled it through here. And what we're going to do now is we are going to punch a hole using the crocodile right in the middle of the spine. And you just want to make sure that you pull the strings for your signature out of the way. And I am just going to line this up. I'm going to try to find that mark. It's kind of tricky. And you can just make a hole with a regular hole punch. If that's all you have, it will work as well. This is just a quicker way. So I am going to pull my crocodile out of there. And now, as you can see, we have this little hole here. Set that off to the side. And what I'm going to do with that hole is I am going to put a decorative button, but I want to make sure that it is strung through well. So that's why the hole. I'm not going to put a grommet in this because the button will cover the hole on this side here and you will not see it. So I will be right back. I'm just going to grab a decorative button and put that in there. Okay, so now that I have my hole, I've picked out a couple different buttons. This one has some little diamonds in it. This is quite the feminine journal. So I think I'm going to opt for this one though, because it does stick up more and I want to make sure that whatever I use is going to hold on to my string. So we have our hole here and we're just going to turn this button. Make sure you leave a little bit of space so it's sticking up a little. And then I'm going to go to this side. I'm going to take some E6000, which is an extremely strong adhesive. You just want to make sure that you pull your signature cords out of the way. And we are just going to get some of that E6000 in there. And I am going to cover that so that that cord does not get all sticky. We're just going to use this little rose and beans as it is. Again, a junk journal. I don't need a perfect round circle. This is just going to cover that little buttonhole nicely. So we're just going to add some glue to the back of our little circle here. Put our little rose there. So now we have this button positioned. We can put our signatures back in. And I just want to show you another little fun thing that you can do using some of the seam binding from Country Craft Creations. I probably don't need this long of a length, but take your signature strings and just slide a length. If you want more than one color, you could slip 2 colors in there. And do that before you stick your signatures in. And then just be sure to get your signatures in there on top of the ribbon. So I'm just going to pull those all through. This is also another one of the signatures I made, one of the first, and this one is just shabby stitched by hand. That's another option. And when you open it, I did add a couple pieces of the scrap paper before I sewed it so that I have some pages in between. There's just so many things you can do with junk journaling because it doesn't have to be so precise. It gives you a bigger window of things to work with. So after sliding that ribbon in, just kind of pull it close to the middle. And if you have more than one, just grab them all. And we're just going to tie this, not tight because you want them to move, just enough. And you can have that, since I have such a long piece, I'm just going to pull my stuff out of it. And now you have a spot that your signatures can hold together. and it looks nice, and it's also functional. So then we're going to close this up, and this is what our button is for. And now we have a closure. So that is the conclusion of my junk journal vintage memory keeper. Junk journal meets regular album. I hope that you make one of these and show it on Scrapbookers on Facebook so that I can see what you've done, and anything that you've done differently to show some other ways of doing these would be great. So have an absolutely wonderful afternoon, and I will see you next time. Okay, so I have completed my vintage memory keeper album, which is my project that takes junk journaling and structured albums and brings them together. Was my idea, and I hope that you like what I've done. Now, I did not embellish all of the pages of my signatures yet. I plan to use this junk journal, so I will keep an update of what I've added. If I do any new tricks and tips to give you, I will post those as well going forward. But for now, let's just take a look at what I finished on the inside. So we did our cover and our base, as well as our button closure. I'm just going to pull that open. And as you can see, I've gone ahead and I've embellished those pockets using scraps of the paper and some lace. I made a couple little pieces that you could add a photo to this and stick it in, as well as another scrap that I used, folded in half, and another one here. And those just slip into the pockets that we made. And then I have the little tags, and I will show you a little tip. These tags are super simple to create the look of the tag by using a hole punch. Just your normal hole punch, line it up over the lines that show up, and you cut that out, and you will get those same exact round hole looks, like a spool of tickets. So that's that side. And then, of course, we have our signatures. Now, I did go ahead and I added some lace to the cover of this signature, and I stapled on a piece of scrap that I had here to make a little belly band to add one of these little cutaways of a postcard from a scrap of paper. And then, of course, my first signature has some of those pieces that I sewed in, as you can see. And then the second signature, when I first started creating this album, I made my signatures a little too small, and thank goodness I had only made one, but it actually works out because when we string our cord into the grommets on the spine to add our signatures, you have this double one in the middle. So I took one of those smaller signatures that I kept and just went ahead and put it on the second. As you can see here, it's on the second cord there, and it fits nicely inside of there. So that worked out really well. On this side, I've added a little bit of washi tape, a part of a doily that I had in my stash, some more of those tickets, and then I took some of the paper, one of the scraps I had left over, and I have, this is just jute string wrapped around it. I just cut it and cut some stripe lined paper and stapled it together, and then just used score tape to put it in here, and folded this over to make this fun little separate signature for some journaling if I want to do that. And then this cord, the jute, just wraps nicely around there a couple times, and we just tie that off, and it slips right down into that pocket. You can do so many things with junk journals. You don't even know. It's crazy. So this pocket, I just took a scrap of the paper that had the roses that I thought was pretty, and I roughed up the edges and used my vintage photo distress ink, and I added a little jute, gluing it underneath that paper. And again, if you remember, this is our pocket that lifts up, and you could put stuff down here as well and slip something into this pocket. I did not do that yet. This could also fit in that pocket if I wanted. That would work as well. So that is the conclusion of my vintage memory keeper album / junk journal. And again, I hope that everyone that watches this gets a chance to make one of these or something similar, and you share it with us on the Scrapbookers page. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day. Thanks.